Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of Luke and I on the Phillies. I believe this is episode 4 of the new season. It's either 4 or 5. Can't remember off the top of my head. I am Luke Arcani. To your right of me is John Jansen, the co-host with Sean Brace on the Daily Ticket, 3 to 6. Multiple nights now that we've went to the bullpen here instead of having the usual Sean Brace. We had Mark Henry Jr. last week. We talked all things Hall of Fame, everything. Vic Fangio being apparently a huge Phillies guy. And now we have John Jansen on. I know me and John are very hardcore baseball stats guys. So I think we're going to have some fun with this one tonight.
Yeah. Let's get into the BABIPs. Let's get into the FIPS, baby. Let's get into it all, dude. Let's get into WOBA's Run Created Plus. The nerds are taking over on Luke and I. Sean Brace is so anti-nerd, so let's make this as nerdy as we possibly can. Even though I haven't looked up those numbers at all yet. I haven't done my research on baseball.
I'm going to get on baseballsavant.com right now, and we're going to start talking. Speaking of Baseball Savant, real quick. I was looking the other day because I'm just a sick person when it comes to baseball. I was looking at Phil Maton's Baseball Savant page the other day.
Why are you doing that?
And it is bizarre. Let me find it. Let me pull it up real quick. He is 99th percentile in average exit velocity at 84.5. He just doesn't allow hard hits. His hard hit percentile is the 100th percentile. With an average of a 23.5% hard hit.
Dude, Houston Astros, man.
If you want to have a fun time, either one, go look at his Baseball Savant page, or like me and Mark Henry Jr. talked about last week, go look at Barry Bonds' baseball reference page. It is
Barry Bonds.
It's unbelievable. Like the numbers that I was reading.
Barry Bonds is very good. It's more just look at the OPS numbers that he has, and they're like we were so impressed that I think what was it, Aaron Judge? I think at back-to-back or something like 1,000 OPS seasons. We're like, oh my God, this doesn't get done. It's crazy. And then you look at Barry Bonds. It's like he had back-to-back 1,200 OPS years. Like, dude was insane. And it's like whatever. I mean, I don't want to get into my first time talking baseball this year on a podcast or on a show, and the first thing I'm going to bring up is steroids. But I don't care that dude took steroids or whatever. Dude is one of the most incredible baseball players I've ever seen.
I've done it again.
And I'm sure enhancers helped him to a certain degree, but not that. I mean, you got to make contact with the baseball, not just hit it hard. You have to make contact with it and hit it hard, and he did both of them.
That's the thing. I've once again found myself back on Barry Bonds' baseball reference page. Real quick, and then we'll get into these DraftKings odds.
Is that your favorite one? That is a good baseball reference.
It's the best baseball reference page ever. Yeah. 2001, 1.379 OPS with a 259 OPS plus. 2002, 1.381 OPS with a 268 OPS plus. He had a 231 OPS plus the next year and a 263 OPS plus in 2004. Jeez. That was his 4-time in a row All-Star MVP Silver Slugger from 01.
My nominee for great baseball reference page to look up would be Pedro. Pedro's a fun.
Yeah. Probably just.
If individual performances are on there, if you want to look at game logs, but seasons, I mean, good Lord. I mean, just some absurd ones. This guy's finished in the sub-2 ERAs like a few times. And then you get to see him at the end of his career pitch for the Phillies. Play in a World Series here for the Phillies.
My favorite part about his baseball reference page is the year that the Phillies won the World Series was his worst ERA of his entire career with the biggest Phillies rival, the Mets.
Yeah, he got really bad towards the end with the Mets.
So maybe one night we will hop on here again and just go through the craziest baseball. Next episode, we will rank the 10 best baseball reference pages of all time.
That's fun. That's fun because I want to research and throw some underrated ones in there.
Let's do it. We got some odds today from DraftKings Sportsbook. We got some player totals for the 2024 MLB season, which is now 56 days away. We are, I believe, 13 days till the first day of pitchers and catchers. We're almost there. We're in the home stretch until baseball. The Phillies play a baseball game this month. We can officially say that now. But I know there's a lot on here. There's home run leader, strikeout leader, RBI leader, hits leader, stolen bases, saves. But I think to start, I know we really want to get into season total home runs for players. Right now, I believe the highest number is Aaron Judge. Aaron Judge leads the way at 44.5. And then after that, I believe it's Matt Olson and Pete Alonso are tied for second. So those are kind of your top three guys, which granted, that makes sense. Those are probably three of the best 5 home run hitters in baseball. And you can make an argument that those guys are the best 3. But right off the bat, let's start at the top. Aaron Judge, right? Last year, not an unbelievable year. Dealt with the injuries, kind of back and forth. Didn't really have an awesome year at the plate. I mean, 106 games. He was under 40 home runs, under 80 RBIs. But obviously, just now 2 years removed from a season with 62 home runs and 131 RBIs. So his number sits at 44.5. I'm kind of back and forth. I feel like the trend with Judge is either like a career year or like just under 40. So where are you kind of at there?
Yeah, I mean, that's the kind of thing you got to look at with some of these guys, because every year is not a career year. It's not going to get better than the year before sometimes. But there could be some bounce back years. Yeah, last year was a little bit down. His runs created plus ended up being down, WOBA down, but still, it's the highest in his career. It's still some of the highest numbers that he's had. So for as much as some of the total numbers went down, I mean, he only had 37 home runs. He still is playing some of his best baseball. And I think it really just comes down to availability for him. If he's playing, if he's on the field, like, I think there's potential for these numbers to go back up again. It's not going to go up to, his totals are not going to go up to what it was a couple of years ago when he won the MVP. 62 home runs is very hard to do. 131 RBIs, very hard to do. Some of the numbers he was putting up was crazy. But again, other than that, like, the other things were there. His OPS was still very high. He finished in the 1000s for OPS. So as long as he plays, 44.5 is going to be tough. But I think this is a year where he does get close to 50. I still think, because he's reached that sort of peak in his career where I think we're going to see 3 or 4 years, of really high baseball play from him. He's that kind of player. He's that kind of talent. So I do think we're going to see similar numbers in terms of the underlying metrics, and those are going to stay relatively the same. And if they do, it's just availability. Availability, I think, is going to be good this year, and I would say over 44.5. But really, I think the only thing you got to worry for is just injuries with him.
Yeah, it's really the matter of, if he stays on the field, he's probably going to go over his number. And if he hits the ball, even like last year when he was on the field, if he hits the ball anywhere close to 2022, he's going to soar over that number. So if there was a side for maybe us to lean, I would probably say the over there. But next guy on the list is Adley Rutschman. One of the most probably fun, I would say right now, players in the entire league. His number right now is 19.5. That to me, I think, is my favorite number out of every player on this board. Adley had 20 last year, and I only see his number going up right now.
Yeah, I do see up. That's certainly for me. Once you hit, after a couple of years, all guys are different. Some start earlier than others, but I feel like once you get to a certain amount of plate appearances, guys get really comfortable and find their stride. I think Adley Rutschman, I would say maybe 25 is in play for him here. I could say that. It obviously just comes down to game played, and because he's a catcher, they're going to rest him a little bit more. So that is a big part of it. But the numbers to me are going to jump up. He went down a little bit from his numbers in his rookie year, then to 2023. Most of it across the board was down. The only thing that went up really was on base percentage was up a little bit in average, but some of the other stuff down. I think this is going to be one of his better years. Like, when you look on the back of the baseball card, and you see Adley Rutschman's numbers, this is probably going to be one of his top years. I'm projecting a big breakout. I think there's going to be a year that 25 home runs is certainly in play. I see the batting average around 270, 280. And they're going to need it. Obviously, Baltimore is in a position where they need to win kind of now, even though they got a new ownership group. So we'll see if they're actually going to spend on some of these guys and keep somebody like Rutschman around for a while. But, they got a great nucleus of very young talent. And I think that they're going to continue that this season. There was a big breakout year for them last year overall as a team, but I think Rutschman in particular is going to have one of his better years. I think this could be a career year for him.
Yeah, so I think we kind of can agree there. If we're going to take one side, it is definitely going to be the over there. There's a few guys in between then, but the next guy I kind of want to look at is Austin Riley, who I feel like is somehow underrated.
Austin Riley's underrated.
The dude just mashes baseball.
He is so good. And I remember
underrated.
I was, God, what was the year that he was actually, he wasn't going to win the MVP, but he was an MVP candidate. I said that. It was like, oh, this guy's been an MVP candidate before. And somebody came back to me like, what are you talking about? Like, Austin Riley's never been that close. I'm like, yeah, man, Austin Riley has been close. And in these conversations, he's finished in the top 10 3 straight years. The year I was talking about was 2022, where he finished 6th. For most of that, though, he was like top 3 to 5. Through most of that year because he was having a stellar, like unbelievable year after the All-Star break. And I think it was, I think Freddie Freeman was still on that team. So Austin Riley, like that's the thing. There was Freddie Freeman when he was there, Ronald Acuna Jr., all these other guys that come up and end up having great years for Atlanta, and Austin Riley just kind of gets looked past. But yeah, Austin Riley, because of the amount of talent that the Braves had, just kind of, he's one that people just kind of look ahead. And I don't think that's the right thing to do because I think Austin Riley is probably one of, if not the more consistent best bats on that team.
Yeah, and I think when you look at Austin Riley, if he's going to hit the home runs, like he nearly plays every single game. 2021, he was in for 160 games. 2022, he was in for 159 games, and last year he was in for 159 games. Right, so if the bat is going, you don't have to worry about really him getting injured, and that's not even as a jinx type of thing, right? That is sort of like he is going to be out there nearly every day, and it's something that the Braves were so good at last year. Matt Olson played almost every day, right? Ozzie Albies played whenever he was out there, right? Like the Braves played just all their top guys, just seemed to almost literally play every day. So that's why it almost feels easy to kind of bet on those props for Braves players because they're always going to have a chance because they're always out there. So, I mean, if you look back at Riley's last 3 years, he's went 37, 38, and 33. So that line seems right. I don't know. That's kind of in the middle.
It's way too close.
It's way too close. Yeah, it's probably one that I probably wouldn't touch. But it's more of a fact to show that he is a very underrated baseball player. It's like he
extremely,
I
do think
he's just
extremely underrated,
insanely consistent. It's a guy that the Braves, I feel like, granted, it's because he's played on the Braves for so long, right? That they've taken for years. It's been Acuna, Freddie, right? All these guys, but Austin Riley rakes. Like he's going to be there for a long time. Like he's not going anywhere. He's going to kill the Phillies for a while.
Yeah. He's going to be on their side for a long time. He's such a good player.
All right. So I mean, next guy really on this list, I guess we could look at our guy Bryce Harper right now set at 30.5. Harper now getting to play a full season. He is now healthy for opening day. He's in now. He's not missing the first month and a half. I'm going to say it just straight up. I like Bryce's over in the most unbiased way. I
don't think it's unbiased.
I think this is just a really good number for Bryce. And I think too, I think this is a really big year for Bryce. I have Bryce finishing at least top 3 MVP. I think this is a year for him maybe to get that award back and become a guy who I think there's only 9 guys in the history of Major League Baseball who have won more than 3 or more MVPs. So I think Harper's just I think it's 2 years now of just failure at the end. And I keep saying, I feel like Harper is I feel like this is just his year. If you look at the games, Harper played 141 games in 2021. That was the year he won MVP. He hit 35 home runs. In 2019, his first year with the Phillies, he hit 35 that year. He hit 34 the year before with Washington. So the trend with Bryce is every year that he plays the right amount of games and the games that he should without really injuries, he goes over his total. So if we believe that Bryce is going to be out there for a full season without any, major injuries, I think this is an obvious over for me.
Yeah, I think for me as well. Because the power's been there. Like everything's still there for Bryce Harper. Like the OPS numbers are still good. The slugging numbers remain really high. The only thing from the last 2 seasons, the reason why this has gone under and why you may be getting a slight discount on this number is health. Now he's not always the healthiest. He doesn't finish seasons all that often. And he hasn't really with the Phillies. Now, one of those years obviously was the pandemic year, but the highest games he's played with the Phillies in a season is 157, which is pretty high. But other than that, the pandemic year was 58. But 141, 99, and 126. He hasn't started years healthy. He said injuries linger for a long time. Some of those, though, are really like unlucky, getting hit on the thumb type injuries. That's not going to happen every year. So I do think, look, he has some things like back problems and stuff like that. I mean, like Mike Trout, I would look at his under just because this back problem is not going to go away and it's only going to get worse for Mike Trout. But for Bryce, it's not really that. It's just the dumb stuff that he's picking up. Again, thumb injuries, getting hit by pitches on the thumb and stuff like that. So as long as Bryce Harper is healthy, all the numbers suggest that if he plays a full season or close to it, he'll be in the 30s. He'll be near, a 34, 35. He hit 34 at his last year in Washington, 35 in 2019. The highest he hit with the Phillies, other than that 35 in 2019, in 2021 was 35. Honestly, with the number 13 that he had in 58 games, if my math is somewhat correct, I'm just kind of eyeballing it here. He could have gone 4 straight years with 30 or more home runs. Yep. So if that's the case, the guy still is hitting it on a per game basis, on game to game basis. He's still hitting enough home runs per game to justify getting over 30. It's just, is he going to play enough games? And I think to me, that's a yes. It's not like he has chronic health issues. Like, again, Mike Trout's chronic. I mean, that back injury is going to continue to every year for the rest of his career keep him out a certain amount of games. Bryce Harper isn't that. Bryce Harper's just, hopefully a pitcher doesn't hit him on the thumb and he's out for 2 or 3 months.
Or he's not hopping over the rails in his first game back after coming back from Tommy John.
What a wild person. Yeah, even he's going to be out in the field more. I feel confident with him out in the field that it keeps him invested, and I think it's going to keep him hopefully healthier, I would say. First base isn't a very strenuous position to play in Major League Baseball. I like it. I think Bryce Harper could definitely be healthy and over 30. Again, I feel like it's getting a discount because Bryce Harper, again, for almost 4 straight years would have gone over 30. Obviously, I'm counting the pandemic year, but if I'm, again, freeballing it correctly, that 13 home runs in 58 games would make its way to close to, if not over 30 in that span. I do like it. I do like it.
I think, like you said, it's health. And it's never been the case with Bryce. Like, he's not like, I wouldn't put Bryce in that like injury prone category.
No, it's not. It's really
just dumb stuff. It's him getting hit in the hand by Blake Snell and like that stuff. The only real one was the Tommy John, right? Like that was the one.
Which isn't going to help.
No, then that's not going to help. It's like, it's never going to help you when you get Tommy John. But the next guy on here is Elly De La Cruz, who I think is kind of interesting going into this season. Obviously, Elly De La Cruz, one of the biggest rookie names that we saw last year. He finished 7th in Rookie of the Year voting just because he kind of had a downwards back half of the year after his debut. He kind of fell off after his he was kind of on that like 2-month run where he was just going absolutely insane. It felt like he was hitting a home run or hitting a triple and getting to third base in like 9 seconds, like every day. So he played 98 games last year and he hit 13. His over under right now is 21.5. It kind of depends how your take on Ellie is for this season, right? Is he going to continue to get better? He's the kind of guy that it seems like while he does hit the home runs, he kind of does everything else. So those guys with home run pops, I've tended to kind of always stay away from. You know, those guys that can steal bases, those guys that get the extra base hits. Like they're not just home run hitters. But I mean, if you think the power is there for Ellie going into year 2, then I would probably lean towards the over there. But 21.5, how do you feel about that number?
See, that's a hard number. I'm going to need to see because Ellie De La Cruz, we know, is a very, very talented baseball player. I think he's very talented. His average exit velocity is good. He's got the strength. He's got speed. He is a 5-tool player, and he's like one of the best examples of a 5-tool baseball player. But the problem for him is, and everybody was getting so upset because the nerds got a hold of Ellie De La Cruz numbers, and they were like saying that there's some problems here. And it was like, no, there's not problems. Like, don't ruin a good thing. But then the end of the season, you started to see guys got problems with his launch angle. He does not have a high launch angle, and he has a very, very high ground ball percentage. Yeah. I'm not saying he can't ever get over 20 home runs or he can't get over 21.5. He has the power to. Again, his average exit velocity in his rookie year was solid. I think it was like 77th percentile, like really good, like very, 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 very good. When he makes contact, he hits the ball hard. But his problem is it's mostly on the ground. 53% is a high ground ball percentage number. So he's going to have to change that. To me, there's going to need to be some like tangible changes I need to see at the plate and numbers I see move for me to think that he can hit that. As of now, I wouldn't even bet the under. Like I'm not saying I would do that, but to me, it's not worth betting the over until you find he's making those changes, which I think he's aware of. I think every team would have to be aware of a player that's having a ground ball percentage like that. Ellie De La Cruz, if he lifts the ball a little bit, he's got the power. And I think Cincinnati's going to try and tell him that, like, hey, we got to fix this.
And I think they realize, right, like how good he can be. I think
Absolutely.
that's going
extremely
to be
talented.
They are going to want to change that as quick as they can, because at baseball, you get in these habits. And once he gets in these habits of just down cutting right at the ball, it could turn into a almost wasted career.
And he didn't stay in the minor leagues very long. Like he made his way up quick. So he started playing single A. He started his Cincinnati career at the very low affiliate baseball, like 2019. But then he's up at 2021 is his first year at single A, and then he makes his debut in 2023. So like that's what I mean. There still is time. And some guys make changes like late in their minor league careers. Like Rhys Hoskins made a late change in his minor league career that I think, what was he, 24, 25 when Hoskins came up and then started to hit really well. And there was changes made. Like I think there are changes that can be made to Ellie De La Cruz swing, but I'm going to have to see it first before I can bet on something like that. But the changes can be made. Like it's still early enough in his career that he can make some changes to his swing and he'll be fine.
Next one. Juan Soto, 36.5. I know we talked about this before we got on here. New team, new stadium, completely new situation. Immediate thoughts, over under 36.5.
Mine was under.
Mine is too.
Mine is under. And I like
not by a lot. Not by a lot.
Not by a lot.
Because I think the stadium favors him.
So the stadium does, and I understand that. But he tied his career high, or actually had a career high in home runs last year in 35. It's not like he doesn't play. He's been playing in these games. He's always had really good numbers. And even his year that he had a 1.185 OPS, he only had, it was the pandemic year, so we probably would have had, very good numbers.
Yeah, I mean, he was on track. He was on track pandemic year for 47 games. He was on pace for like 40 pandemic year.
So that would have been his career high, right? Yeah. He has not so he's a very good player. And so this is a hard one for me because, when he first got traded to San Diego, like that half a year was almost wasted. I think he played like 50 something games in San Diego. That time was wasted. Just really didn't catch on in San Diego at first. Then last year, it took a long while for him to finally get going. And once he did, I mean, the numbers were insane. And the short, like if you saw the run he was on, like if you isolated a certain amount of games and a certain amount of months, Juan Soto put up like ridiculous numbers. So it's a hard one for me, but he's again moved on to another franchise. I know right field is going to be a little bit easier for him, but still that doesn't, I feel like people put number 5 to 7 home runs, which if you use his average home runs, like he averages about like high 20s, 28 to 30. And so you add 5 to 7 to that, then he finally hits the over, what is he at 36 and a half? 30, That's a lot. I don't think it impacts it all that much. Like if he's going to Coors Field, that's just science, man. That's science. It's the atmosphere that has something.
Kyle Schwarber played 162 games in Coors Field. Right. I had 120 home runs.
Right. Like we know the altitude has a lot to do with that. But in Yankee Stadium, I don't think it makes that much of a difference. It's gonna help him.
And if you want to look at it in this factor, right? He played every game last year, and he only hit 35. So
exactly.
What's going to happen when he plays 145 next year, right? I mean, granted, his first year with the Yankees, he could go out and play all 162. And obviously,
you never know how these guys are going to react in New York. We've seen it so many times. Now, he's a great player. I think he's going to be fine. But I don't know if he's going to have like this huge breakout year. I don't know if he can repeat, because what you hope is he can like repeat some of the things he did early on in his Washington career. He had a 1.185 OPS one year. That's insane. Yeah. The next year was a .999 and like pretty much 1,000 OPS. But since then hasn't really gotten close to that. And even when he has gotten close to that, like the mid 900s, it's not really resulted in getting over this number. So to me, it's very hard. If you expect like this year to just be him at the top of his game, fine. There are so many factors here to me that would think that he might not actually be able to get there.
Yeah. All right. We got 2 more here, and then we're going to run through some other guys quick. Schwarber, over under 39.5 right now. My immediate thought thinks over. I believe both years he's been here, he's done 40 plus. So, I mean, that to me comes down to, once again, I mean, all these futures really just come down to if they're out there. And if Kyle Schwarber's out there like he's been the last 2 years, I see him going over. I know you said under. Any reason, or just kind of?
Yeah, his slugging has been through the roof with the Phillies, and it's reminiscent of some of the stuff in Chicago when he was there. Like there's going to be a quick, not a quick downturn, but the numbers are going to progressively just get lower. Yeah. I think it's going to be a difficult year for him to get 40. 40 is a tough number, and I know he's reached it twice in a row, and he's kind of made it look easy. 46 in 2022, and then last year 47. Like made it look very easy, and he's near the top of the leaderboard when it comes to, or top of the odds board when it comes to home runs. Who can hit the most home runs in a year? I just think this could be one of those years that maybe it's not as consistent of home run, and we don't get one of the great power years from Kyle Schwarber. 40's tough to hit, and the Phillies are lucky that they got 2 very good home run years out of him. I just have a feeling this probably isn't going to be one of those years. The slugging already dipped from 2022 to 2023. I think those numbers are just going to like continually dip in his time in Philly. Not to say he's ever going to be like so bad that it's going to be a problem. It's just that it's hard to repeat what he's done. It's so hard to do that.
So that means that it's going to be a season full of should Kyle Schwarber still hit in the leadoff spot is what you're saying.
We're going to get that forever. We're going to get that. Well, and we're going to get is Kyle Schwarber even worth having in the lineup when he's hitting nothing? All the Kyle Schwarber stuff that we've heard for 2 years now, we're going to hear again this season. It might be a little out of there this year because the home run numbers have been it soothed things over for the last couple of years because for as much as the other stuff is bad, he doesn't get on base a lot, or he does get on base a decent amount, but the contact numbers aren't good. He doesn't get on base all that often because of hitting, and the average is really bad. It's the very classic, not classic, but like it's the butting of heads between the does average actually matter and hitting matter, or does just getting on base and hitting home runs does. The good thing for Schwarber is he's been very good for the people on the other side that just say, look, good, solid OBP and a really good slugging percentage and hitting home runs. That's it. Like all I need from you, perfect. But I think this is one of the years where it may be a little bit tough to say, okay, well, are the rewards actually outweighing a lot of the bad stuff here? I still think it is worth it, and I still think having him in the lineup is great. But this is going to be I think a bit of a not down year. Just again, I think the numbers are going to dip at some point. This year feels like the good spot for it to happen.
Last one, Trey Turner, 23.5.
Dude, MVP Trey.
There it is.
MVP Trey.
So
I think
Trey hit 28 total in 2021. After what was one of the most criticized first halves, I think, that I've ever seen in baseball. He finished with 26, which is 2.5 homers over that number after an abysmal first half. I'm going over on this. I may go way over on this.
I think he has a chance to get 30.
Yeah, I think this is a big year for Trey.
Trey's already had, peak years. He's been around for a long time already. He first got in the majors 2015. Rookie year was 2016. So, he's been around for a while, and I know there have been already some peak years, but I still think there is one or two left in him of insane peak Trey Turner years. This to me is one of those. This is a very classic example, and we've seen this recently with a lot of baseball players that have gotten big contracts, signed somewhere else, struggle early, get good in the second year. And I think Trey Turner's the perfect candidate for it. He didn't lose his swing. He didn't become a bad baseball player. The first half of the year was bad. Second half, it was very telling that this guy still is unbelievably talented, and not only has still really good baseball left, he still might have a career year left. That's how good we saw Trey Turner, is that there is a potential for a career year to still happen with him, and for his peak as a baseball player to still peak once again. I think it's going to happen this year, and I think we're going to get at least 2 years sustained of peak Trey Turner baseball. His OPS is going to be over 900. I think he's going to get close to and probably hit 30 home runs. That's a tough one because he hasn't done that yet in his career. He's gotten close. I think it could do it. 26 home runs last year is ridiculous.
If Trey
and the home run surge last year was ridiculous, but I think he has a chance to not only hit 26 again, I think he has a chance to fly over that. I really do. I'm liking Trey Turner for MVP. I think his stealing numbers are going to be up. I think his OPS is going to be close to a 950. He had that when he ended up getting traded to the Dodgers when he was in Washington. That entire year, he had an 890 OPS when he was with Washington for 100. What was that? 100 or 96 games? Then 52. He played after that with the Dodgers at 950. So he had a 930 something OPS, 920 something OPS between those two squads. That's a high number. So to me, he finished at 911. So 911's good. He's gotten at 937 before in his career. This is a guy that can finish in the high 900s, the mid to high 900s, and I think he does that with the Phillies this year.
If he puts up 30 homers, 900 OPS.
2020 with Washington, he did 980. And that year,
if he does that, 30 homers, 980,
yes.
What?
He's gotten 28 before. He's gotten over 23 times in his career. He's gotten over 20. Yeah, 2021, he had 28. So he's gotten over 23 times in his career. And I think this is one of those years that it could be if not his best home run years.
Yeah, and I think we've all it is a very common thing right now to be on the Trey Turner hype train. I feel like which is something very.
It is.
I think it's cool. After all that, and now it seems from 6 months ago, it was this dude stinks to this dude may win MVP. It flipped. And granted, when you have an August like that and you have a playoffs like that, that's going to happen. And I think people finally just started to realize who Trey Turner was and who he is. Like that, the guy we saw the first 4 months of last season, that's just not who Trey Turner is. If you've watched Trey Turner play baseball before last season, you know that what he showed you the last 3 months or the first 3 months of that season is just not even in the same universe as what he
No,
usually is.
it just sucks that you like for the people like us that were like, just wait, it's gonna happen. Like this guy just didn't forget how to play baseball because everybody's afraid. Because I think he's like 30, and everybody's afraid 30. Maybe he's on the downturn of his career. I don't. I still think there's like a peak still waiting for Trey Turner, and I think it's gonna happen starting this year. But it was mostly just be patient because we knew it was gonna happen. All the people that really knew Trey Turner was great was gonna happen. And man, not only was it a be patient and then he got good, it was holy hell. This guy's like one of the better hitters in baseball. And I think he's always been that way. He's one of the best. He is truly one of the best.
He's just consistent. He's always been consistent.
Consistent. He has been in MVP discussions before, finished top 5 in MVP in the 2021 year. I think he's going to have, look, I'm doing MVP because I think it's probably the pricing is going to be good enough. I haven't checked the awards yet, but I would say Trey Turner for MVP is probably not going to be a bad one. Let me see Trey Turner.
Trey Turner MVP right now is at 22-1.
I love it.
It's a great number.
He's going to finish in top 5. So he is not right now in the top 5 of odds for guys that can get the MVP in terms of odds. He's like what? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So yeah, so he's 10th. He's tied for 10th shortest odds. So to me, he is going to be a top 5 at least MVP candidate this year. So that tells me if I think he's going to be top 5, he's outside of that in terms of odds. So I do like it. I think you see that kind of year. And again, he's finished top 7 before, top 5 in his last year with the Dodgers. He finished 11th. But again, I think he's guaranteed a lock to be a top 10 MVP candidate this year. But to me, top 5 is where he finished.
All right. There's a few left here. Let's run a quick hitter on these. Just over or under. Give me an answer. Francisco Lindor, over under 27.5.
Under.
Jose Altuve, over under 24.5.
I'm going to go under there as well.
Julio Rodriguez, over under 31.5.
Over.
Yeah. I absolutely love that.
Yeah, I know he struggled a little bit last year, if I remember correctly.
He is the real deal.
He's the truth.
If the Mariners ever get him some serious help around him, they're going to be gross for a while.
Yeah, I'm thinking he has like a wildly good year this year.
Luis Robert Jr., over under 29.5.
Under.
Manny Machado, over under 30.5.
Oh, I saw this number and I was because San Diego's in such a weird spot now.
Yeah, this one's weird for me too.
I'm gonna go over. I mean, he's unbelievable baseball player, so I'll go over. But I don't know, the vibes in San Diego I'm not vibing with.
Mike Trout, 30.5.
Under. I think the back problem's here to stay. It's not gonna go away.
And then I got 2 more for you. Ronald Acuna Jr., 37.5.
Over. He's going to hit 40.
And then Pete Alonso, 42.5. That's a spot on number, I feel like.
Yeah, I hate that. It's so good.
I got one more too after that for you. One more too.
Peel, I'll go over. I think Pete Alonso has a really, really good home run year. I think it's close. He had 53 in his first year. I'm not going to say he gets to 50, but he's going to be damn close to that.
And lastly, for the home runs, then we're going to really quickly run through the strikeouts. Yordan Alvarez, over under 37.5.
That's spot on too, but I will go under. I'll stick with that theme there. Under for a little bit, because my thinking with like Altuve and them, again, like a bunch of deep runs, great team, but we've seen that times it's kind of slowed down a bit and injuries pop up. I'll just say under. I think it's a weird year for Houston.
Love it. All right, real quick. After the hitters, let's roll over to some pitchers real quick. Top of the list right now. At least the first name on here. Aaron Nola, now back with the Phillies for 7 more years. Over under 195.5. I could not believe this number. I am absolutely taking the over on this number. Aaron Nola is a 200 strikeout a year machine. He does not get hurt. He strikes guys out. No, and the thing about Nola is, even if he's having a bad game, he's still striking people out, even in his bad games. Nola is just a strikeout. He's just a strikeout pitcher. I mean, we've seen it now his whole career. He's gone over 205 times. Last year he had 202. The year before he had 235, and the year before that he had 223. First reaction, over under 195.5. Aaron Nola.
The first reaction's over just because 200. And I guess the only thing I would caution is there's always going to be a point in someone's career, especially as they get older and the miles start to wear and tear on their arm. Eventually he's going to get hurt, or eventually he's going to start missing some starts. Like, nobody is ever going to have the clean bill of health that Aaron Nola's had throughout his career. But it's really hard to project. Well, I think it's just going to get injured. It's hard to project that the guy has proven time and time again that his arm can kind of withstand the mileage. And even if he struggles getting out, he will never struggle striking out people. That's just always a part of his game. His curveball is good enough. His put out stuff's good enough. It's just his fastball is the one that can get him in trouble. And if it gets hit hard, then his fastball, it all is just going to depend on if he's getting out to this fastball. And that's just going to depend on how great of a year he has. It's very dependent on that, I should say. But strikeout numbers are always going to be there. He always is out there and available. I can't project that he won't be, so I would say over.
Yeah, I'm going to be all over the over. That is definitely going to be one that I'm going to bet. Next, we'll go to Garrett Cole, who
Great
the
year
last 3 years has thrown over 220 strikeouts. Obviously, he had that year in Houston where he had 326 strikeouts and did not win Cy Young, which is kind of crazy to look back at. But his number right now is set at 220.5. I don't know. It's that's kind of that's one that I feel like could mess with some people. I feel like that is one that we think Garrett Cole, we're going to think over. And after 3 really good years, maybe this year's not his year. Maybe it is. And maybe I'm going to look like a fool and he's going to have like 250 strikeouts. But I'm right off the bat, I think I'm leaning to the under right now.
Because it's such a high number. And of course he's hit this number like easily.
But it's still just a high number.
It's tough because you can't stumble once.
That is a number that you cannot miss 3 starts. If you miss 3 starts in the season, you do not hit that number.
Like, he has to be out there. He has to be pitching well. He has to be going deep in the starts. It's tough. And again, he's done it. So he's already proven that he can do these things. But there's so many factors that go into having a 220 plus strikeout year. So to say that all of those factors are going to be fine again, it's so tough. And again, he's probably going to hit it, and probably going to be stupid for saying it, but it's just such a high number. I would just have to say under for that kind of number.
If you want to talk high numbers, let's talk Spencer Strider.
Spencer Strider.
250.5 over under. It's impossible for me to bet that on an over. Like, maybe that's just one I don't take, right? But like, I cannot put American dollars on a human to throw 250 strikeouts in one season. I can't do it. I don't. And maybe he'll have that Garrett Cole 2019 season where he throws over 300 and I'll look like an absolute idiot in like 7 months. But I mean, I don't know. I just can't. I cannot bet a number that high.
That's the tough part. Is that it's just so high. It's ballooned up after a 281 strikeout year. He could be the next Garrett Cole, which these numbers are really easily attainable for him. He only did it in 186 innings too, man. Like Garrett Cole pitched 209 and had 220. Like this is 186 innings. The strikeout per 9 numbers are ridiculous.
It's 13 and a half strikeouts per 9 innings.
Ridiculous.
He has 4.84 strikeouts for every walk.
So look, even if there is a dip in quality there, and let's just say that does regress, and he's like a 12 or 11 strikeout per 9. All he's got to do. I think he showed that he's durable by the end of the year, even last year in the playoffs. I thought he was pitching well against the Phillies. Like he still had his stuff. He still had gas.
And we look at the Castellanos home run, whatever. But like he gave us some trouble.
Yes, he was really good.
He gives everyone trouble. Like
so I thought
a great pitcher.
Towards the end, the problem in his first year was he ran out of gas. And so I think we're seeing this year, can the arm stay healthy? Can he still, have the type of velocity and have the quality of pitches towards the end of the year? I think he passed that with flying colors. So let's just say he does. If he gets to 186 again, and then even past that, let's just say he can get close to 200 innings. If he does that, and even if he has slight regression numbers with the strikeout per 9, or not even slight, let's just say he has a full 1 or 2 dip in his strikeout per 9 numbers, he could still fly over that.
I mean, he may hit 300 if he pitches 200 innings. That would be adding.
The thing is, if you say if there is regression, but he's still close to a 13 strikeout per 9, and he's like somewhat similar in that regard, and he pitches like 195 to 200 innings, that number is flying over with absolute ease, flying over it.
Yeah.
So it's a high.
The innings.
High
it all relies on the innings.
It all relies
how
on
late it's how late he stays in games.
It's relying on innings, but it's not relying on that many innings. Again, Garrett Cole needed 209 innings to get 220 something strikeouts last year. Especially he needed 186 to get 281. So even if there is again, you give some give and take on the innings pitched or the strikeout per 9. Either way, it still averages out to probably going way over that number. So it's hard, and any injury, any time missed can completely screw that over. But we saw the durability there. We saw the quality stay all season long. I think Spencer Strider, I think he flies over the number again. I think you're seeing another, it could be close to 300, but I'm going to say to a ballpark number of 270, 290.
That's crazy. In 100,
it's crazy. It is
in 185 innings.
It is. All
right, we got one more across the league, and then one more Philly. Yoshinobu Yamamoto, 172 and a half. Obviously, the biggest pitcher signing of this offseason, going out to LA. You can say whether he's going to be the 1, whether he's going to be the 2. He's not. I don't think he's going to start opening day. But 172 and a half. I don't know where to go with this. This is definitely one that I'm kind of back and forth with. I just don't. I don't know how it's going to translate over to the major leagues. It's a weird number for his situation. If this was a really good pitcher that is known for strikeouts, then that's a good number. But I think the number has to be low because we've never seen him pitched in Major League Baseball, right? He's pitched over in Japan. While everybody thinks it's going to translate over well, we don't know that 100%. So 172 and a half. What are you thinking there?
So the hard part is that there is a transition period for pitchers going from Japan or overseas into Major League Baseball. The difference in his case is he's extremely talented. So it's just one thing we don't know. Does the talent immediately end up working, or is it going to take some time? Shohei, it was a lot easier for him as a batter than it was for a hitter. I remember that. He was still good pitching, but he really came into his own really the last couple of years pitching. He's dealt with some various injuries pitching, but it's mostly been because he's also just had to get better as a pitcher. So there might be a period where Yamamoto has to get a little bit better, or there's a transition in how he pitches in over from Japan League into Major League Baseball. It's a tough one. I just think the transition is really tough. And there's multiple things to think of off the field as well. Being into a completely new country, all of that stuff has a factor into it. We just talked about guys moving into a different stadium with a different organization and different approaches and like how tough that is. You guys go completely different country, different language. Baseball's still the same though. I still think he's going to be good. It's just, is that transition, how long is that going to take if it does take long? And I would worry about that.
Last one, Zach Wheeler, 193.5.
Does he stay healthy?
Yes. If he stays on the field, I think he goes over the number.
Because he goes deep into games. Just when he's available, he pitches a lot. It's just he hasn't been. Look, his availability has actually been pretty good. The problem is like he's either started seasons where he had an injury in spring training and it lingered into the start of the season, so we kind of got a late start, or injuries throughout the year that pop up. Nothing like long term, but it's popped up enough that kind of just worry that can he consistently be out there each and every game. But I think if he does, it's close, because I know his strikeout per 9 isn't even near like Aaron Nola's, if I'm remembering correctly.
Yeah, no, it's not.
For him, it's just Aaron Nola's strikeout per 9s are actually pretty good. But for him, it's mostly he goes late into games almost all the time when he's out there. And so he's going to be close. I would say no. I'd say under on that, but I know that's a pretty fair number.
So Wheeler's been here for 3 full seasons. He's thrown 213 innings in 2021, 153 in 2022, and 192 in 2023. He went 247 strikeouts in 21. He went 163 the year where he missed like 5 or 6 starts. And then last year he had 212. So like you said, if Wheeler stays on the field, he's probably going to hit the over. It's just a matter of, and I think last year was going into that season, him and Nola got off to a rough start, and it was known that their arms were burnt out in October from the fall before, right? They had a tough start to the beginning of last year. I think they're going to be more used to it. I think this is a number where I tend to lean towards the over, but I think it depends, right? If you get that in quotes contract year Wheeler, which at the rate we're going seems like that's probably going to happen. There's been some thoughts that the Phillies want to get this contract done, but nothing really big rumors yet. So if that contract does go into the end of this season, Zach Wheeler is going to be pitching for more money, right? And I think he knows that in the back of his head, and I think that's what Aaron Nola knew last year. So I would tend to lean the over there.
I think it's fair, because also you're right about last year getting a slow start. Both did, and that's just deep run. Zach Wheeler came into 2022 with an injury, so he's had these like really slow starts and still has been able to put up like good numbers. Because I remember 2 years ago, 2022 is when he had a spring training injury, and in April and March I'm looking at now, he had 4 starts. And in those 4 starts, he had a 5.79 ERA, gave up 18 hits in 18 2/3 innings and 12 earned runs in 18 2/3 innings. So it's been slow starts for him for a couple of years now. If he is consistent, healthy from game 1 to the finish line, he's going to get over that number. It's just that the last 2 years it hasn't happened. And, I'm not to say it can, but that's just been a problem that's been plaguing him at least for the past couple of years.
This is what happens when you give 2 baseball nerds microphones. We talk for nearly an hour on if guys are going to hit home runs or guys are going to strike people out.
Yeah, I was not expecting that, because this is me not waffling around, but having my brain firing off. Oh yeah, remember that from last year, a couple of years ago, and looking up these numbers and refreshing myself on a lot of these numbers.
If you were watching on Twitter on your phone and were not able to refresh, over the last 54 minutes, you have missed that Joel Embiid has a torn meniscus. Tyrese Maxey is an all-star reserve, And the Washington Commanders have interest as a potential candidate for Chip Kelly to be their offensive coordinator.
That's the one. The Embiid injury doesn't surprise me. More meniscus. We knew it was going to be somewhat bad.
It's such a weird report.
Kelly's coming back. That's wild. And
it's a weird report about Embiid because they're saying it's an injured lateral meniscus in his left knee, but they're saying he'll be out through the weekend.
That's what they're saying. They're still. So I think he's going to be out through the weekend, and they're going to weigh their options during
make their decision.
So I don't think right. So I don't think that means he comes back after the weekend. It's okay. Here's a firm decision on time frame of when he's out. Our plan of attack for him to rehab or get this injury to be better.
So Embiid is out 2 weeks before.
Torn meniscus isn't the worst.
No, it could be a lot worse.
I would say probably you're waiting till like after All-Star break.
Yeah, I mean, ideally, right now the MVP is out the window. If you put him on the bench till after the All-Star break,
MVP has been gone. Don't bet him. I think on DraftKings he's probably going to be off the board now.
But I think he's I think you guys said earlier he was like 20-1 earlier now or something like that. But
Joel Embiid is officially he's still 50-1.
50-1. Don't bet it. Do not bet it. It's a crime that he's up there still. Well, John, thank you. Thank you for nerding out with me for the last hour.
Thank you for helping me brush up on some baseball knowledge.
Yeah, I mean, we need it. We're only 2 weeks away here from pitchers and catchers.
I'll tell you what, it felt good.
It's good, man. It is the best. It is the best time of the year. At JJansen34 on Twitter, co-host Daily Ticket, Sean Brace, 3 to 6 Monday to Friday on Fox Sports The Gambler. A lot of live shows we've been doing here. I know Tansy, Coyle, Jansen hopped on today. They've been doing a lot of college basketball stuff. A lot of live shows, a lot of things coming your way here from Fox Sports The Gambler. I am Luke Arcani, and this was another episode of Luke and I on the Phillies.